You meet her among the cracks and right angles of deep lock quarry. She crabs back to cover her clutch of eggs. Your muscles go taut in the same way, wild and unconsidered, heart quick without enough breath to compare your relative mass. You back away. I tell you, she can prey on fish 5 times the size of her body just to turn your blood on, pumping too loud in your ears to consider her family, the nursery web spiders, a different way to name her. I wonder what is or isn't automatic or natural. We ought to be careful looking over the menu at Fisher's Cafe that no one decides to name us by what we consume. Bread people, beef people, egg crushers and cheese melters, oil folks and forest eaters, mountaintop destroyers, those who confuse shame for power, then swallow it all, drainers of rivers, desert makers, 73 hot dogs in 10 minutes, entire neighborhoods of old homes, feeding on memory, feeding on self-improvement, clutching our eggs and our pets close to the tangle of veins and artery and nerves in our core, web of ribs, sternum and carapace. Thank you. I want you to look at me the way you look at the eastern Dobson fly. Like I could bite your finger right off, though I can't. Or like I was once a Helgramite, an alien child, like my biology has its own rules, which it does, and we know this. I want you to look at me with interest when I lean in for a kiss in a cinematic shaft of light under Breakneck Bridge, or wet bottoms on a mossy boulder below the waterfall. Downstream, a fisherman and his daughter turn stones looking for bait. Pure water clouds with their disturbances. Don't look at me like I am a pure stream, you say, like I am hiding life in my shadows. Thank you.
Throughout. So this is called Blight of the American Chestnut, with observations from the naturalist Donald Coolross Peaty. The chestnut grows blighted and destined to die on the bodies of giants that once feathered and bloomed like a sea with white combers plowing across its surface. Illness inhabits a legacy, inhabits a system of root, trunk, and vein swirling through the chestnut, grown blighted and destined to die. Browns resurrect in lovely women's locks, in fine silk cuts pleated into dresses, curtains, tablecloths, like seas with white combers plowing across the surface. Resurrected in memory and laboratories where needles shock cankers into surviving samples, we play God on the chestnuts, growing blighted and destined to die, or to try, at least. Generational loops curse roots back into fatal sprouts with only distant dreams of parents, like a sea with white combers plowing across its surface. We treasured their wood and pianos, barn timbers, fences, smoothed their tall torsos into human shapes and desires. The blighted chestnut we sentenced to drown, its white combers still bobbing on the surface. Thank you. I'm scared of the future and American coots. What I want are impossible things: to become the raised edge of an embroidered tulip, to singe the line struck through the prayer itinerary, the promised future, to waft smoke legs into cool loam, to pat the uprooted aster back into place like a music box removed from the shelf for cleaning. I want sad movies to be longer and mandatory, the lake to freeze year-round. This is another kind of control, dialectical thinking, the lake frozen and thawed at the same time. As is the case near the storm drain, pushing waves so like an ocean it never stalls. The coots and geese circle each other while they sleep, one ring around another like cuts in cornfields. Things we attribute to aliens, strange lights in the night, and feats of great geometry. a perfect pyramid before gas-powered machinery, an exact circle like a footprint of a planet. Have you ever seen the foot of an American coot? Held a gull's wing in your hand? Flight is another word for inhuman. To walk on land, paddle water, and lift like a petal in the wind. To draw blood only if necessary.
Warmouth sunfish, also called molly, red-eye, goggle-eye, red-eyed bream, strawberry perch. Mowmouth, stump knocker, limb bream, a mouthful. You are mouthful. Some think you're named for having more mouth than your relatives and that you've been mispronounced warmouth, moremouth, warmouth, moremouth over time. People say you're all mouth, which, as opposed to being described as all heart, I can tell you that's not a bad thing to be. Often I daydream about discarding my heart and letting everything it had been holding spill out of my lips, which is to say I wish I was mouthier. Others believe you're named for your stripes, resembling war paint used by Native Americans, and others still offer an odd logic on the origin of your name. Got a mouth so big you could have a war in it. I think we relate too often in terms of violence. So I call you something silly, like Google Eye, like Stump Knocker. Sometimes we need something light. You avoid the light, which is a funny thing for a sunfish to do. You have teeth on your tongue and rungs along your throat like a ridged shell or a mountainous cave. If one were to only view you through your open mouth, they would think you much larger than you are. You eat almost anything, water fleas, aquatic bugs, crayfish, small crustaceans, but you aren't often eaten. People often describe your taste as muddy. It is funny to expect a bottom feeder to taste of something other than the bottom of whatever water they feed in. Some people do catch and eat you. They cook mudfish nuggets in hot grease. It is lucky, however, in this world, not to be devoured. You are not intensely desired. You are not in danger yet. You are, in fact, a least concern. This is the best thing you can be. As a human, every time you learn about a creature, especially one with goggle eyes, gigantic mouths, and little stained glass mohawks, you must Google their conservation status, hold your breath, and hope for the words least concern to appear before you. You are in the water, all around me, elusive, hiding amongst vegetation, red-eyed, golden-bellied, being mistaken for other fish, rock bass, green sunfish, and called by names that don't fit, sunfish, warmouth, worrying only about what to put into your very large mouth today and chew up with your tooth-speckled tongue, and deciding ultimately on what is nearest, delicious. They say fish don't feel pain. I wish you could open your enormous mouth and tell us. I'm out here listening. Thanks, guys. This poem is called If You Want to Save Your Life. If you want to save your life, start walking. Move one foot, then the other, down a path through woods of western larch, ponderosa pine, or quaking aspen, which Kaylee calls dancing trees, for the joy in their constant fluttering. You come through the clearing, you climb the saddle, you are on the ridge now. The mountain before you, suddenly in reach, small like you could pinch it between your fingers. And no, don't hike with a speaker. The music is already on. The squeaks of pikas, the chirp of a marmot, the whistle of wind in the valley, the laughter of your company, the silence. What do you want to do with your life? I want only to live in the world. It occurs to me that I may have to be more precise with my language, with what I mean by the world and living. In the Tetons, Mitch tells me of a girl who doesn't care for nature. She has a taste for the finer things, going to the mall, a nice restaurant. He is a staunchly earnest man. Things are changing, but I thought deep down people don't know anymore? They don't see that it's bullshit? Traffic, concrete, sirens, shouting, sedentary, TV, blue phone light, news lines like ticker tape in the brain, shattering glass, excess. How you spend your days is how you spend your life. It is important to check yourself often then. What am I doing with my life? Am I living in the world? I used to survive on cynicism alone. I used to believe I was alone and that love was a foolish act. I used to speak about the earth as if it were already gone. So busy mourning a death that hadn't happened yet, I almost forgot to dance in the world while it was here. So I started walking, further to mountaintops, to glacial lakes, then stripped and swam in the cold shock of blue. Life is not such a serious thing, not really. Joy is. Once, we climbed a mountain, though the sky warned us not to. In a dark sky lit up with lightning, Katie's hair floated up, stood on end. We sheltered best we could at a lower altitude, bracing against the wind. Bilal's afro was full of hail, and we were overcome with giddy, inexplicable laughter. I held Bilal's hands as we slid down the saddle, the soil wet and electric with petrichor. He'd never heard me laugh so hard. Listen, your life could end in traffic. I do not mean to tell you to be reckless with your one life. I ask only that you take chances that remind you it is wild and it is precious. The earth could bury us in an instant, yes, and the funeral would be so, so green. Listen to me. The natural world is still out there. We don't have to watch it from Instagram. Not yet. Fear is a premature death when you surrender to it. Yes, the rain is full of plastics. Dance in it anyway.
Is that I have two children who may expostulate back there, and a lot of my poems have been thinking about what of this world are they going to inherit. So that's kind of informing the background. This poem is called Knuckle. God is everywhere, but has his preferences. Or she does, or they. Some pronoun that plunges through the coarse weave of language like light through fog as it fumbles, failing again to laminate the world. God lurks, but not in majesty, whatever the monks in their stony redoubts say, distilling the zing from high meadows. Not in me, turning rocks in the brook and weighing the fate of the crayfish. Maybe the crayfish, shredding the dead into silt, anxious to shiver back into its niche and sieve the current. It curls in my hand like a knuckle, or a hand cupping flame. Some absences burn, some can be held. No man is an island, for God's sake, I hear Muriel Rookheiser bursting, but all dads love the gurgle of water trapped in their backyard. That's why you need a pool. So the ocean your ancestors pitched their weeks-long seasick way across on creaky lunging miracles of oakum-wadded pine can be a pet. So you can poison it every night and call it maintenance. There is some beauty to it, the way the luminescent chemical bouquet blooms slowly into fractalescent plumes, the way the pool then glows all night like the kidney of the ape whose agony proved we cannot, in fact, contract a single cancer from a thick coating of sunset yellow FCF. I love that ape. I love that I, Clark Griswold, was able to make its suffering scientific, useful even, for I squeezed out of its rolling groans important data and the bonus that subsidized my pool. I love, too, whoever learned that when you oxidize hydrazine, a propellant used initially in space probes and artillery, it yields diazine, the azo compound so perfect for the food dyes I am at work in charge of. On their shoulders I stand, doing what every dad should be able to do, hold a warming can of Ham's beer in one hand and a long-handled skimmer in the other, fishing drowned, diaphanous things out of the wrinkled skin of light that is my pool, which sometimes in dreams I mistake for the ocean sloshing, processing its trillions of tons of plastic trash into microplastic grains that gather like sand inside your children's hearts. Thanks.
This is called A Lost Letter from a Tree to the Japanese Honeysuckle. You wring my breath away. To feel your million ovaline lips, leaves of emerald cascading up and down my spine. To feel you twine tight around me, tendrils, a tender corset of cellulose divine. To wake in the spring, smelling your nectar's sweat on my neck, a siren's attar lulling me to yield. You are a slippery dancer, cradling my hips with petals of silver and gold, an unfinished poem seeking to dazzle my timid heart, a pirate ship forever moored to the base of my throat. So this one is called Planting Stars by Moonlight. And it's a true story. I did plant them by the moonlight. The day blackened to a deep violet night, heavy with dew and longing. On the seam where gravel meets grass, I stood half dreaming, tilted my gaze toward the mouth of the sky, and for a moment I was tempted to give up, throw everything I carried inside out into the wilderness of time, back to the fiery, hot seed of the universe before it began its long stretch outward. Is there such a thing as starting over? The old silver maple craned its lichen-mottled neck, curious to know the weight of clouds bathing in the evening's silken glow. I'm curious to know the taste of moonlight, how it feels between the seams of who I was and where I want to be. A hard frost is nigh, and a flat of asters waited like my heart for the right time. I sunk each one in the soft soil of home, smooth blue, sky blue, heath. Each time my fingers felt the cool, wet earth, I imagined stars everywhere, blooming. For a moment, everything sang like a promise I made wishing it were unbroken. Thank you.
A windfall of American robins flip-flap the valley on this balmy, budding dawn. Festoon unwitting branches in glints red-orange. Dozens splash in the creek, sing with rusted tongues, the language of risen grass, tepid rain, laughing toddlers. The sky, a mass of mists, sunbeams blink ochre and auburn across dew-gilded meadows. The light, an illusion of wonder and awe, as if the scrim between life and death has thinned, is penetrable, if only we trill tenderly, fling open windows and doors, until the house becomes air. You ready? She rocks in the treetop all the day long, hopping and a-bopping and a-singing her song. All the other birdies be stomping their feet. Love to hear the robin going, rockin' robin, rockin' robin. Hey, rockin' robin got a whole lot of rockin' going on. Yeah. Y'all are great. Oh, Salt Fork, I've come to hide inside your autumn. Walk beneath the cathedral of your branches. Become a meditative painting, a Cezanne. Your impressions revealed in planes of pigment, the slow study of light. Pin oak in American beach awash in swaths of topaz and carnelian. The lake, a reverie of reflections. The universe is out of whack. Tremulous in the pathos of floods, wildfires, and drought. Here, Red squirrels wax comedic. All bark, tuck, and tumble, a white-tailed snorting at their antics. Tangy pockets of frostweed and switchgrass intoxicate my airways, weak-knee me into giggles. Chickadees hip-hop branch to thicket, their black caps adorably gangsta. Above, an osprey chirps its tea kettle whistle, ascends, thrusts, disappears, returns, as if parlaying ancestral maps stored inside the lace of its bones. Cricket songs stitch the afternoon. I don't know how long your trails can hold such abundance. Your fervor of tones and textures winding their way to my insides, transcendent as a psalm. The rhythm of your balms and breezes, rumoring their promise of peace. Thank you.
Hope is the flash of green bursting out from under an old leaf as dozens of iridescent insects scatter towards the sun, their metallic bodies holding hidden wings, 6 delicate legs skimming the soil, surrendering to the decomposition of the earth, their ancient eyes looking at the rot running through the forest floor and seeing possibilities. Deep breaths are not a lung expanding in and out. They are the air passing through every opening of a body, to be wrapped up by the wind, to be anchored in the ground. Thanks. This piece is called Eminent Domain. Daddy said the world was mine, so I took it. Digging my toes in at the edge of this land, where the ocean opens to the mountains, Bruce's beach. This golden typography smoldering through my eyes like a ballad. I know the terrain gets tired of being up for the taking. Once or twice I ran with it, heading out west with a deep hunger, an ordinary wilderness. I wasn't looking for an apology. I was looking for the root of the word resort, aid. The sea says to find it, shed everything you love, including the idea of belonging. Only this loneliness is yours to carry. The tide pulling at your ankles is there to claim you. Restitution is the shape of the sea. Today is a whole new era. Thanks.
Where seasons pass under new turquoise skies, where colors fall quietly in the forest, where cold ponds flow under small wooden bridges, where snow crystals float along brisk tree bark, where leaves tangled twigs laid on the powdery white ground, there are flowers winter can't wilt. See the gnarled stem joyously budding a spidery yellow foliage in this thicket coldness, mottled gray moss flower in the wintry fog, settling on witch hazels. They disappear like the last colored leaf, leaving behind grains of seedling dust. From its scale glittered wings, here the furrowed earth doesn't turn, it sits. Thank you. Down the hill from my mother's apartment was an opening through a rusted chain-link fence, leading me to the Filgary Woods, where as an eye-widening lone boy, I wander agape through switchgrass like dimsy flies, dappling its plush colors everywhere. I will peek through bright swarming leaves and search for a songbird dressed in blue, warbling its favorite song to a family of green trees. Glorious distraction from the shudder of middle school, where my face was shoved against the rivulet of a water fountain by a kid not taught how to be gentle with his hands. As I slumped sipping to pass the time so no one will eye me, slipping into the class where the dumb kids go. I should have thrown words at his face, I was too timid, only felt powerful whenever I lifted rocks to see what smaller, unusual insects rallied in subterranean mud, softened by soil. As I raked the inky dirt with my fingers, my words were small back then. I was told I couldn't use them. It was hard to speak up, but I was bold enough to look for earthworms with a long spiny stick. I swatted yellow striped wasps as I raced through tall weeds, chiseling my own path to the water's edge. Since I couldn't skip rocks like the other kids, I stood on a stone jutted out of a creek that seemed to murmur, "Follow me," and I leaped onto another stone without bumbling. How easy it was to not get my shabby shoes or socks wet. The sunny water rippled past. Up close, I saw fish flitting, a canopy of branches blazing as shadows, and my own wet eyes floating away from memories of kids making fun of me. A lonely leaf drifted ahead, and I wonder which branch it disappeared from. All to say, here in the woods, how easy it was to become the trees, hum like flowers, and hold water in my hands. Thank you.
American sweet gum. Work in the woods, you're not an arborist. Go to the lake, it's a flavor spike. Star thorn, seed spurt, gum spike, spike, clouds go to pieces. One too many gusts, you guess. Chipmunk warns by ding-dinging a tin hood. We won't get everything. It's a hard job if a woman wants it. Sharper than they'll ever be. How many leaves make a grievance tree? It's happening everywhere. The one in charge of listening turns. Otherwise, it's easy. Almost anyone could. Kicking pods as if they're bark. All one can be is a wall at first. Keep the sap out. Count to 4 as you hum along. All the live long, round and round the block again, holding hands. Herbarium. Transcription. I ivy, I bittersweet, thistle beside me, note daisy, note I be me, backwoodsman, I woodsman, from dogwood, from jasmine, from kala, note here, hop, clover, horse balm, nightshade, and lily, note entire body mine, collection fixed. Modern equivalent. I am led to see, I am not me to press this leaf. Transcription. Bloodroot shoots through veins, note no rot in a bellflower, marked throat wort, body marked fern. The impression left upon a leaf preserved leaves nothing, or nothing my mind collects. Perhaps my eye plucks cotton grass, hollyhock, yellow lupine, false foxglove, moss. Correction of identification. I is stem with no leaves. I is body with no mind. I blooms in sight of pressed stem still yet blooming. When first did I inhabit the body that pressed this body? I mean, when first did I inhibit it? Misnamed have I. Modern equivalent. Plucked the common dandelion. I took it to the leaf. I pressed a question. What found you, yourself, and name? Where fit my stem? What have I done to note? Thank you.
The muskrat makes his bed. To the man who asked what I am good for, a few words. It's true, my ancestral name is unfortunate. 2 rough things unkindly brought together. But while you can't speak it, musk is my language, and rats the size of my tongue. Also my ambition. What you don't know would fill my burrow and its underwater entrance twice over. With my extraordinary lung capacity and my glossy underparts, I made Hinterland's Who's Who. In 2012, it was my famous lodge, den, and bed that earned me Wetland Designer of the Year. It's true, I eat sedge and cattail. It's true, I lap up pondweed and duck potato, bulb and tuber, and if forced, I will stoop to snail and salamander. It's true, I am swamp and bog inclined. I'm not picky. My family's ancient and well represented in the fossil record. I am rumored to be descended from the Balkan snow vole with whom I share a molar. I can swim backwards, and I can hold my breath for a full 17 minutes. Are you good for that? I am not a beaver, and I am not a rat. Call me what you will, but I am native. How rich for you, destroyer of habitats, to accuse me of destructiveness, to blame me for your leaking pond. I understand that you think yours is the only story to tell, and that your way is the only way to tell it. But I have news for you. Musk is how I sing, talk, love, woo, and warn. It's my sign of bigger things yet to come. You can't ice me over or push me out. I will defend my bed, my burrow, and my craft. After all, who among us in this world is not born blind and furless, given a name by others and called to account? Though my father was large, I am larger. My tongue weighs 8,000 pounds and is the size of an adult male elephant. It's true, it's true. With this burden in my mouth, I admit I'm not much of a talker. Though I have eyes, the distance between them is legion, and I have learned to see via an intricate series of moans and sighs, which moan and sigh back at me off the ocean floor. In this way, the world has come to seem wrapped in complaint, a litany of sorrowing echoes collecting in my backscatter. The movement of my mind makes sugar out of sunlight, but it is so slow sometimes, it takes 3 seconds just to open my mouth that I don't bother. The shipwreck of me when I finally hit bottom will support an entire ecosystem, and it will take the various eels and hagfishes decades to pick my bones clean, but I don't take much comfort in that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was lucky right around the time I finished my graduate studies in poetry in Colorado. I got to be part of a similar project for Rocky Mountain National Park, which was really why I chose Colorado for graduate school. I would have my teaching schedule so I could hike 2 or 3 days in the park when nobody else was there. And it was a great way to come to know the place and to get to know the writing community. And so from the minute I moved back to Ohio, I wanted to do something for Cuyahoga Valley, for my home park. And I think around the pandemic, I kind of pitched it to the Wick Poetry Center where I work as something worthwhile for our time. And I was very lucky at the time that Carrie was working with us and was able to help. And then as it grew, we knew we needed to find somebody up in the Cleveland area. And I'd met Jason a few times and we spoke actually here in the library at one of the incubator events. And he says, yes, this is the kind of project I think I really want to do right now. And without him, it wouldn't have grown in the way that it has and become as rich as it is. Yeah. Anything you want to add?
All right, any questions from the audience before I ask additional questions? No. All right. So over the course of this, writing your poems for this book, do you feel like you've developed a special attachment to your specimen? And anyone can answer, or we can go in order. Do you want to answer, Catherine?
Yeah. I'm all for muskrats. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, huh? Me too. I feel like I mean, a little bit you have affection when you choose them, right? You know, like you look at the big list and you're like, oh, some speak to you and some don't. So I like the idea that it was musky and ratty together.
With the fishing spider, I picked it because I'd met her and she was lovely, but also I spend a lot of time in the park and it's something I've only come across once. And so I don't think I'll ever meet another one, which is to say, yeah, there was something like rare when I saw that on the list. I was like, I met one of those, and it was really an experience, and it let me ask some questions I wanted to ask in that poem. So, yeah.
I'll start by saying that the way we typically distributed species was I had a spreadsheet of some species that we thought might be familiar and some that we thought maybe weren't as familiar but were still interesting that are specific to the national park. And I used a random number generator to pick like 3 that I then sent to everybody. Occasionally somebody would have a request and I would try to do that. But for the most part, everybody got a random selection of species. So sometimes it was actually interesting because they would already have a meaningful relationship with that species, even though it was random. And then sometimes, as some of them have said today, that they didn't know that much about it and they got to learn about it. So for me, because I was in a more editorial position, I chose the American chestnut because I was really interested in it. And it's like extinct, but it is still present in the park. So I didn't know if anybody else would choose it.
As I said before I read my poem, I did not have a strong attachment to the warmouth sunfish, or really any sunfish. I didn't really know that much about it going into it, but I think that was a really fun challenge for me because I think it's easy to write about things you love and maybe know a lot about or fixate on and read about all the time. So it was fun to pick something completely unknown to me and find reasons to fall in love with it or see what it had to say to me in the context of this poem. So yeah, I mean, I don't see a lot of warmouth sunfish around. It's I got to go looking for them. So it's not like I now seek them out, but I like to know that they're, elusive and hiding down there in the waters in Cuyahoga Valley National Park.
I don't know if I'd say that I have more affection for the crayfish after spending time with it. I think having picked it, it clarified to me certain affiliations that I have with it. It's a very ubiquitous creature. It's not specific only to Cuyahoga. You can find it just about anywhere in almost every continent, I believe, aside from Antarctica. And having led a very peripatetic childhood, that spoke to me in some ways, that you could find something like that everywhere. It seems very global. Another thing that clarified my affiliation to it was its kind of scavenging method of just sustenance. I feel like a scavenger, ultimately. As a human, as a white man, a lot of the things that have redounded to me have come because of the horrific histories of exploitation and white supremacy, and I could just skim off the top. Not that I do so liberally. As you may have noted in some of my poems, I try to critique that through satire. And so in having chosen the crayfish kind of offhandedly, it continued to be part of my larger considerations, I think, when it comes to writing poems. That, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I don't know if I'm still attached to the honey. I think it's the opposite for me now because I was surprised I was going to get that I got an invasive species as part of the list, but they are everywhere. And we are an invasive species, if you think about it. But I was, looking for something that maybe was both familiar and something that I saw every day and that I thought I really liked. And then when I read about it a little bit more, and then I was seeing what it was doing to all the trees that are on the land. I started unwinding a lot more that I saw, and so I'm more like detached from it, and like telling my goats, eat some more of it right now. And I feel like writing a part 2 poem, but more about how you can use the Japanese honeysuckle like to make weave baskets, for instance, and like at least use something for it other than just unwind and leave it to decompose. So anyway.
Well, I think I told you all that I chose the American robin because I wanted to make sure it got in the book. And it's such a simple little bird, and I think we take it for granted. And it deserved its space, I felt like. And as I said, to me, it's the harbinger. The minute I see a robin, I feel like I can breathe again. And so I forced myself to be very simple and economic in the poem. Just as we think of the robins, I didn't want to try to give them too much space or take up too much of the planet. I wanted it to be what it is. So
That's really sweet. It reminds me of my niece who, when she had to do her first school project, they all had to pick like a animal, and she chose the robin, which was so sweet because I was like, really? Out of everything? But she really loves the robin. Kids are a good like litmus test for everything. They know. So I would say, yes, I have developed an affinity for the beetle in general. I learned a lot about other cultures that sort of revere the beetle as a symbol of like perseverance, resilience, and so yeah, I would say writing sometimes just changes and alters how you see the world, and almost like you start to see it more. So yeah, I start to see it in more places. When I went to Boston, I was visiting my brother, and someone told me to go to Harvard to see these like glass flowers at the zoology. I don't know. Harvard has a lot of interesting collections. But I also came across David Rockefeller's beetle collection of 150,000 beetles. And I was like, I'm so happy right now. So yes, I have developed an affinity for the beetle.
Total transparency. Sort of my association with witch hazel was through the form of like this bottle of ointment of witch hazel in my bathroom. That's all I knew. So I look at it differently now. I didn't really think of it in the form of a plant. But, I'm sort of, I don't know, I'm fascinated with the phenomenon of like nature, and it's, for me, nature puzzles me. All that I think I know is suspended when I'm confronted with nature. So it was like really cool to know like not everything withers in the winter. Like I was just fascinated by that. And then I found myself going to the woods looking for her. I didn't find them yet, but sort of like, yeah, I love learning. I love discovering. So it was an adventure for me. It was also a challenge for me because I was writing about some things that had nothing to do with nature, but it allowed me to like reassociate myself or reacclimate myself to nature, and which really sort of sparked sort of my childhood wonderment, because I kind of got to go back and like, why am I so attached to nature? Oh, because I was a kid. I used to roam around the woods. And so I just love that it sort of drew out memory for me.
When I saw American Sweet Gum on the list, I didn't recognize it by name. And so I was like looking up some of the things that were given to me, and I realized it had been the bane of my existence. There it was. It had a name, those little pods, that cling to everything. And I was delighted because they're all over my neighborhood, and they're a pain, and they're I'm always stomping on them, and they barely flatten. And they come into my house through my kid and my dog and all that. And I immediately knew I wanted to write about the tree and those pods because they're right there in that pattern, that loop that I'm like constantly walking in my neighborhood over and over and over and over and over. And I didn't, know what they were. And then I knew what they were. And so some of the poem that I read had little, like when I sat down to write it, it had little snippets of like at the end, there's that like holding hands and live long, that's like from I've been working on the railroad, which my kid sings as we like loop. And there's other little just like lines in that poem that I could recall from thoughts or conversations or phone calls or like things that had happened in that little loop. And so to me, identifying that element of nature was immediately became like a cool formal, like a limit. Like I would write about everything that was in the space that was in for me. So yeah, so I'm fond of, I hate and love.
Any questions from the audience?
I have a question for the editors. Were there any species that were on your list that did not get selected by any of the writers that you really were hoping?
All right, you can go first.
Okay. The one that comes to mind, we almost got one, was the Canadian goose, which feels like a very ubiquitous one. Oh, goose fans. But I think maybe nobody wanted to do that because Wild Geese by Mary Oliver is already like the predominant goose poem. That's the one that comes to my mind right away.
When I did the project at Rocky Mountain, I was worried people would fight over the more charismatic species that everyone would want, like the mountain lion, right, or something like that. So I was trying to think like, oh, what are people going to fight over here? And so I was worried we'd get like 15 people wanting to do like bald eagle or otter poems, but that didn't end up happening, and I'm okay with it. But the one that we never got, a writer had agreed to do it. She was in a band called Indigo Bunting. And I was like, Samantha, you have to write an Indigo Bunting poem. And she said, yes. And I never did. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Any other questions? No. All right. We can end there then. Thanks everyone for coming out. One more round of applause for the poets.